Gordon of Khartoum. Charles Gordon was born in Woolwich in southeast London on the 28th of January 1833. He was the son of senior army officer Henry William Gordon and Elizabeth Enderby. He was later schooled in the Royal Military Academy of his hometown Woolwich. He was commissioned in 1852 as a second lieutenant in the Royal Engineers Corps, and he was latterly sent to the Crimean War in the Russian Empire and assigned to the legendary siege of Sevastopol. He took part in the brutal assault of its fortress. Following the peace treaty, he partook, along with an international commission, in mapping out the new border between the Russian and Ottoman empires. After Crimea, Gordon participated in the campaign of 1860 in China during the Taiping Rebellion against the emperors, a total war which ended up being one of the bloodiest in history, with a death toll estimated at 20 to 30 million deaths, both civilians and soldiers, 600 destroyed and razed towns. At the head of a group of Europeans, he reorganized the Imperial Army and stayed with the British forces as they occupied the northern part of China. Throughout the next 18 months, Gordon's troops played a pivotal role in quashing the Taiping Rebellion, saving the Manchu dynasty. Gordon wasn't corruptible and didn't steal the money that was for his soldiers, like a lot of mandarins. The mandarins didn't understand why Gordon didn't let his soldiers loot and plunder as compensation, and the mandarins weren't happy that Gordon was always asking them for money to pay his soldiers. He went back to England in January 1865 with the nickname of Chinese Gordon. In 1873, he was appointed governor of the province of Equatoria, a region in the south of South Sudan. While he was there, he was much involved in stamping out the slave trade. Unlike the Ottoman Egyptians' oppressive and ruthless rule that wasn't bothered about abolishing the slave trade whatsoever, Gordon achieved a good rapport with the African peoples of Equatoria, such as the Nuer and the Dinka. They had suffered from the Arab slave trade and naturally supported Gordon's efforts to end it. Besides working to end slavery, Gordon also made a series of reforms to abolish torture and public whipping. Gordon later stated that he taught the natives that they had a right to exist. Gordon left his Sudan post in 1880, worn out. For years prior, a Muslim cleric named Muhammad Ahmad had been preaching about a renewal of the faith and the liberation of the land. Muhammad Ahmad proclaimed himself to be the Mahdi, the prophesied redeemer of Islam. His jihad campaign was extremely successful, amassing a lot of followers, enraged at the Turkish oppressors. An Egyptian expedition was ambushed and slaughtered, and Egypt started fretting. The Egyptian administration in Sudan assembled a force 4,000 troops strong, but the troops camped too close to the Mahdist army, and they became overconfident. The Mahdi gathering attacked at dawn and slaughtered the army to a man. The rebels seized the huge amount of weapons left behind. Mahdi's rebels kept growing, and the British government of William Gladstone decided that Sudan wasn't worth the effort. And although Gordon was strongly against Gladstone's Sudan policy, he was sent to Sudan, but only to evacuate the British and Egyptians and leave Sudan to the jihad revolt. The British public were delighted. By this time, Gordon had turned into a bona fide hero and had become rather famous in Britain. Gordon never quite liked the fame and hardly ever gave interviews. He became obsessed with martyrdom. He wished for death, envisaging his death fighting the jihad at Khartoum as romantic and worthy. He wrote, "I feel so very much inclined to wish it. Earth's joys grow very dim, its glories have faded." The Ansar rebels also were galvanized at the thought of fighting the great famed Christian Gordon. And so it began. Upon arriving to Khartoum, Gordon galvanized the troops and set up the defense of Khartoum. A siege began on March the 18th, 1884, commanded by the Mahdi himself, with his 2,500 soldiers. Gordon had a low opinion of the enemy's soldiers, and their blockade were poor. He said that Gordon could have escaped easily throughout the first months of the siege, but he didn't even try. Such was his desperation for martyrdom. The public opinion was that the British government should have sent reinforcements, and in August 1884 the British cabinet voted, with the objection of Prime Minister Gladstone, to send out reinforcements at a cost of £300,000. Gordon held the city. The defence of the city was well planned, and it wasn't until December that the population started to starve. There weren't any dogs, horses, cats in the city anymore, because the people had eaten them with this in mind. Gordon offered the chance to leave to everyone. But Gordon wasn't leaving. He wrote, "If any emissary or letter comes up here ordering me to come down, I will not obey it, but will stay here and fall with the town." Mahdi's forces took a fortress which allowed them to fire at the city, and the city's defences were weakened. When Gordon was advised that he should dim down the lights in the palace to avoid attracting enemy fire, Gordon acted defiantly, ordering all lights to be turned up as bright as possible. In late January, the British reinforcements were closing in on Khartoum, and the Mahdi, knowing this, ordered his troops to storm the city. They attacked, and after only an hour's fighting, the city were theirs. Gordon himself died. The well-known account of his death is that Gordon, already settled on dying for the cause, got dressed in his uniform and a red face, and he left his room to attack the Arrasar forces. He was killed, against the Mahdi's orders, after running out of bullets and attacking with his sword. He was beheaded and his head put on a pike. He spent his last weeks writing obsessively in his diary. He became more and more obsessed with death, writing, "Better a bullet to the brain than to flicker out unheeded." The British reinforcements arrived 2 days late. The public lamented his death, hailing Gordon of Khartoum and blaming the Gladstone government for his death. Chinese Gordon of Khartoum, warrior.